Hello, ticket collectors. Thank you very much for joining. I'm actually very, excited for this episode because we have an amazing guest called Todd, who is a collector of many things within sports memorabilia, but specifically tickets as well. And what I'm most excited about is his take on tennis tickets. They're extremely rare, and if you are within the Boogers chat, you'll notice that he's one of the most engaged members of the community within tennis. I was doing a little check, and there's only around 100 to 200 tickets graded that are specifically tennis. And Todd, how many of those do you have?
Taylor, thanks for having me. I think I probably have between 40 and 50 of those graded tickets so far.
There we go. That is a massive introduction. Around, well, damn near 50% of the tennis tickets are within your possession. Todd, tell us about what you collect and specifically what got you into ticket collecting.
Yeah, sure. So, been collecting since the mid '90s. My dad and I started out like most kids do with baseball cards, and that transitioned quickly into memorabilia. You can see behind me. I love the display aspect of memorabilia a lot better than cards. So we got into memorabilia and started out that way. I've got I collect mostly the best of the best Hall of Famers. You see Tiger behind me, Federer, Messi, some LeBron and Kobe, Brady. The top athletes of all the sports, and that's kind of where we got our start. Growing up in St. Louis, baseball is always a huge impact on our lives and our community. So we're huge Cardinal fans here.
Wow. Okay. And when did you get into tickets, and what pushed you into that sort of side of the sports memorabilia hobby?
Yeah, so back to the Cardinals. Attending a 2006 World Series clinching game with my family, bringing that ticket home as a keepsake. I thought that was really awesome. So the first part of my collection was going back and acquiring the clinching games from the Cardinals World Series victory. So we're a storied franchise. We've got the second most World Series championships behind the Yankees with 11. So I went backwards and started trying to accumulate all the clinching games from the 60s and the 40s and all the way back to 1926 with their first World Series against Babe Ruth and the Yankees. So I knocked off that collection and then still collect some Cardinals, Albert Pujols type tickets here in today's game. But then I transitioned to trying some tennis runs.
Yeah, I was going to say, obviously, we're going to talk a lot about tennis with this as the majority of the focus of this episode. But with obviously the Messi jersey behind you and Cristiano Ronaldo and Tiger Woods, is there any other major tickets that you have in your collection?
I've got a few soccer. I'm a Messi fan, of course, being the global sports star that he is. And now he's in the United States, so I do have a couple Messi tickets, but mostly baseball, mostly Pujols. And other tickets that just catch me, whether it's a moment that I remember or an event that I was at. My family and friends have always been the kind to throw the tickets in a little box for me and keep them. And we've been doing that for a number of years, and just going through them is such fun.
Very nice. So let's move on to tickets then, specifically tennis. What are the things and struggles that tennis ticket collectors have? And how many of them are there in the community? How many people have you reached out into in the past? Tell us all about it, because I'm sure because it's a massive sport, right? Tennis is a huge
Yeah.
sport globally. There's some of the most top paid athletes, yet it kind of doesn't reflect within the amount of collectors and the noise that it really pushes out in the hobby.
Yeah, there are not many of us. So if you are a tennis collector and tennis fan of the sport, just reach out and let's talk. But there are not many of us out there. I think as your pop report shows, most of the tickets that I have are pop one and pop two. I know there's others out there, just like any other sport. Whether people kept them or not, whether people are interested in transitioning them to friends, family, and collectors, that's a whole other story. But there's just not a lot out there. The venues are challenging. I mainly collect Grand Slams, so I'm looking for Wimbledon and French Open, Australian Open, and U.S. Open. U.S. Open, Arthur Ashe Court is one of the largest tennis court in the world. There's 23,000 seats.
Yeah.
But then you get to the French Open and Australian Open and Wimbledon, there might be 13 or 14,000 seats in the grand venues, and that number one is a challenge. But then just with anything else, they're old, and people just might not have kept them. So I started watching tennis when I was young. I grew up watching and playing the sport. being an American, Agassi and Sampras were my number one and number two. Watching that rivalry grow up, so I've got a few from their wins in the '90s, and then from there I transitioned into the big three. Federer is awesome. He's such a class athlete and one of my favorites, and the way that him and Nadal and Djokovic just blew up the sport with their Grand Slams wins has been incredible.
Absolutely. So you mentioned a little bit about the rarity there. Do you think they're rare by the fact that so few people have tried to dig them out, or do you think potentially due to it's quite a well-respected and expensive sport to attend the finals in? Do you think that kind of plays into the rarity?
Yeah, all of that. Yeah, digging them out. People, whether people kept them or just tossed them away like they did with everything else. Maybe for a big match, even people might have kept it, but for a side court, for sure, those are not available or not really cared for. But even the grand courts like Rod Laver Arena, there's just not a lot of tickets, and that I can find. There's only a few avenues we can talk about the avenues that I go through, but there's just not a lot out in inventory, and would love to surface some of them.
Yeah. Do you make any efforts in kind of helping dig them out other than, post some boogers? Is there any, the US Open's obviously a massive event over there. Have you made an effort in, regions of the stadiums?
Not directly. So, during the COVID time, people were joining the Facebook groups left and right. That's where boogers kind of came about and got really popular. At that time, I did try to join some Wimbledon, neighborhood groups.
Yeah.
There's like Wimbledon neighborhood or Friends of London or whatever that some groups were, and I joined those groups from the United States and posted, if you guys have any tickets that come about, let me know. And I heard nothing. I literally heard 0 times from anybody responding to that post. And I haven't really done much. I would say U.S. Open and being in America, that there's probably more U.S. Open tickets circulating than any of the other 3 Grand Slams. French Open and Australian Open are super rare. I've only myself even have a handful of those. But Wimbledon seems to be the most kept, I will say.
Yeah, definitely. I've seen, at least once a month, a few will pop up from different times. And I think that is one of the challenging things. It's often the earlier days within the Wimbledon that these tickets pop up, day 1, day 2. But really finding a finals day ticket is extremely difficult.
Right.
And you look at the layers of that. Is it a grounds pass, or did it actually grant access into the stadium? And there's all these different nuances.
Correct.
Yeah. Have you faced any of these struggles as well?
Yeah. The center court tickets are so hard to come by. They're the bencher holders, and there's a whole queue to get in. I've actually been to Wimbledon. I've experienced that myself in the '90s and actually early 2000s, and I loved every minute of it. I did sneak onto center court. It's one of my claims to fame to see Agassi play. That was awesome. But the tickets are just hard to come by, like you said. And then adding to the element of whether someone decides to stick it in their pocket or throw it away. Just adds to the scarcity of it. It's crazy.
You mentioned Grand Slams, and within ticket tennis collecting, it's quite difficult, right? Because do you collect the debut? Do you collect the first ATP? Do you collect the first Grand Slam? There's so many different things that could cause confusion. What do you go for? What is, in your opinion, as one of the top collectors, what is the holy grail within ticket tennis collecting?
For me, it's just the Grand Slam championships. It only happens 4 times a year, and that's what I try to aim for. The debuts, I know people are into those with baseball and on the other sports. Honestly, when you sent me some questions in advance, I wouldn't know where to start with like a debut, whether it's an ATP or a challenger event or a people playing junior Wimbledon, and there's all sorts of different debuts, just like you guys have with soccer, with friendlies and the cups and World Cups, all that. So that would be super hard to find. I do have some dates written down of events of like Federer's first win on the ATP tour and things like that. But again, if you have a hard time finding a Grand Slam championship, think about how hard those are to find. They're probably not out there.
Absolutely, and the fact that some of them won't even have been ticketed, especially if it's on some of the smaller courts, only a ground pass will get you access into watching it. You can't prove whether it was one of the 7, 8, 9, 15 different courts in the venue. So yeah, I've always found that as one of my top struggles. On top of the fact that just finding them themselves is very difficult. So yeah, I think Grand Slams just make it a lot easier, and also they are the moments that people remember throughout time.
Yeah, the championships are one. If I can find a cool matchup, like I'll show you, I've got the final match between Federer and Nadal. It happened at
Amazing,
Wimbledon.
amazing.
So I've got that ticket, and there's a few other nuances. Maybe a last match. Andre Agassi played his last match at the U.S. Open, so that's something that you could potentially find later on. There's a few of those that I have, and the other thing that I do like to an extent is, and I'll tie one in later, is the Olympics. It's a huge venue and huge sport. Tennis has been a factor there, so I've got a couple Olympic tennis gold medal matches.
Yeah, and they're a bit easier to find as well. Just
Easier to find.
people are more likely to keep them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. Well, I know you've got some tickets in front of you now, and hopefully it will align with my next question. I want to know, and I ask this to every guest that I have, what is one ticket that you have in your collection that you would never sell?
So I'll pull out one that I have here. Let me find it here. It's probably the most. It's not actually the most rare, because there's actually 4 in the pop report.
Which is
most
really common in tennis.
I know, but this is a match that I think it's one of those remember where you were moments. I remember exactly where I was. It's the Federer Nadal 2008 Wimbledon, labeled as the greatest match ever played. It went to 5 sets. It was a tiebreak. It was 5 sets. It was getting dark at night, and they could barely see. You could barely watch them on TV. It was one of those crazy, epic matches. So I actually had 2 of these, and I did sell one, but this one will not leave my collection.
Absolutely, and that's for me as well. That is the grail. I know that there was the Alcaraz Djokovic final in most recently, which was incredible. I actually was there watching it, and I had a great time. For me, that's also one of those moments. I think they go hand in hand to some extent, both being Wimbledon final. But yeah, that is truly probably the grail as a moment. And one that I don't think anyone will ever, if they've had any interest in tennis, ever forget.
Right. Yeah. Like I said, I was on a vacation with my family, and I had to pull aside and go watch the match on a little TV. And I was there for like 5 hours away from our vacation, and I couldn't leave the TV. So I'll always remember that one.
Yeah, well, very few of them are sold. I think you've got a better insight than I. But what is the sales data on some of those for people that might be interested in looking into tennis collecting? What is like the top marker for a ticket like that?
A ticket like that can range anywhere from 1,500 to 2,000, I would say. That's probably the top of the line, depending on the biggest stars in the world. Federer and Nadal. There might be some older tickets, like there's a Billie Jean King and the Battle of the Sexes ticket that is super popular, very rare, and that will go into the thousands. The rest, I think, are acquirable. They're in the hundreds, even down to tens and $20 to $10, just depending on where you can find it and the condition. But yeah, they're not as expensive as a Messi or like those worldwide debuts and things like that. So I think there's definitely acquirable.
And I put this on my list of questions for you. I do think that ties into the fact that potentially the people within sports card collecting haven't yet transferred into ticket collecting, because there's some massive sales for tennis memorabilia, whether it be rackets, clothing, whether it be signed balls or rookie cards. It really hasn't transferred over yet to tennis. So that's what I find equally as interesting.
Yeah, I would love for it to. I mean, Alcaraz has taken the sport to another level. He's so young and so good right now. I hope he continues to stay healthy and win more matches, win more big matches. That will help with the younger generation of card collectors. And like you said, hopefully the card collectors will get into memorabilia and take the transition into thinking about tickets as one of those collectibles.
Yeah, I think as I think about it more now, it's just so difficult. You mentioned that ticket that you just showed us there. I think the highest grade is a PSA 2. Is that correct?
I think so.
So yeah, not only are they rare, there's a condition rarity as well. But yeah, wow,
Yeah,
what that is.
Those Wimbledon tickets are paper. They are so paper thin, and PSA just has a really hard. There are hard graders in general, but they just have a really hard time. I think I have a few Wimbledons that have graded like a 6 or a 7, which is amazing. But most of mine come back between a 1.5, 2, maybe a 3.
Yeah, I
They're
think
just
it depends on
very,
the
very
years,
fragile.
because some of them they gave them like almost a case for the ticket, and then some
Hmm.
examples you kind of just throw it at you and deal with it. It's almost like a receipt. So it
Right.
does vary massively, and it is extremely nuanced, as you mentioned.
Yeah.
I've got loads of questions on my list
Okay.
for you, um, but with value aside, what is your favorite ticket? Forget all the money or top sales or population. If there's one ticket that you would say is your favorite, potentially brings you back to a moment, whether it's just you think it will do well and perform financially well over time, what is that one ticket?
I mean, I don't. It's got to go back to the 2008 ticket that I showed. I mean, that's the grail. It's like I said. I remember where I was when I watched that match. I don't think it'll be repeated. Number one, because of the two legends that were involved in the height of their career, and then two, the level of tennis that was played over 5 hours was just incredible. So that one for sure is a ticket that I'll remember forever. I've got a couple more here I can show that I think are very cool and unique that might not have the value. You want me to go through a few and
Yeah,
show just
please
a
go
few?
through what you've got in front. I'd love to see it.
So
Stories.
starting with
Sorry,
um,
I was going to say, don't only tell the story of the moment, but also kind of how you managed to acquire such a rare ticket.
yeah, so most of these have been honestly eBay finds, and some through boogers, Facebook. But you've invited me to the Discord page. I'm an amateur when it comes to that stuff. I think I put one post out there about tennis tickets when you invited me, and I got I think maybe one response.
Okay.
Other than eBay and maybe some local sales in the U.S. and boogers and Facebook, they're all just acquired that way. And again, it's not that they're super expensive. It's just that they're rare, and it's just a niche market within another niche market of ticket collecting. So I pulled out just a few of my favorites. Again, being an American, Andre Agassi is a legend here. So this is his first Grand Slam championship. It's also a Wimbledon ticket.
Yep.
This is a pop two. So he was young. He's got that flowy hair. He's got Nike going. All that. This was a memorable match. Similarly, on Agassi, he's one of 8 tennis players to win all 4 majors, which is a unique group in and of itself. And even before Federer and Nadal came, it was I think 5 or 6.
Wow.
But then this is an Olympic gold medal ticket that he won in the '96 Olympics, which made him one of only 2 to win what they call it the Golden Slam, which is all 4 majors and the gold medal.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's a really cool, unique ticket, and that was in Atlanta here in the States.
Mm-hmm.
So Pete Sampras again, him and Agassi had a huge rivalry. This is his first Wimbledon championship.
Yep.
Amazing. He for a long time set all the records at Wimbledon before Federer came along. So this is Sampras's first Wimbledon ticket, and to pair that with his last Grand Slam, the 14th Grand Slam is a U.S. Open ticket.
Yeah, that's really.
This was the record. This was what everyone was shooting for. 14 was a lot. And then Federer and Nadal and Djokovic have just come on and just
Nearly
crushed that.
tripled it. Yeah, nearly tripled.
Yeah, it's quite impressive. So this is a pop one. In the back of this ticket actually has the story. Whoever wrote it
Oh,
about
wow.
the match. So some people don't like the markings and all that, but I think it's pretty cool. Somebody wrote 14th Grand Slam. It was a record, and it's just kind of cool that this was actually at the event.
No, I think that's really cool.
Yeah. Let's see. I talked about the scarcity of men's tickets, but women's tickets even more. And so this is one of my favorite Serena Williams tickets. This is a French Open ticket from one of her wins. I just think it's a cool ticket. It's larger than the rest.
Sorry.
This is a 2013 French Open. So this was her 16th Grand Slam.
Yeah, beautiful, incredible.
Yeah, it's just like some of the artwork are just so cool as opposed to a Ticketmaster ticket.
Yeah, definitely.
So and then of course I get into the Nadal and Federer. So this is Federer's first Wimbledon,
Mm-hmm.
first Grand Slam. this is, if I would say, besides the 2008 ticket, which was the epic match, this is his first Grand Slam, which I think is awesome.
Yeah. I've
And
actually got one of
again,
them at PSA at the moment.
yeah, that's incredible. I
What's
think
really
that,
interesting, it says there £72, including VAT. So it's only £72 to get in, but on the resale on the day, they're going for thousands and thousands and thousands of pounds. So that also plays into the fact that
yeah,
they are so rare, because if you paid that much, you probably got quite a lot of money. And then if you've got a lot of money, do you really care about opening up the eBay app and then selling it for £20 or even
right.
less time?
Yeah, yeah. So this one, that's a really cool one.
Amazing.
And then let's see, this is Federer, his eighth Wimbledon. So that was a record, eighth Wimbledon
Yeah.
championship.
Yeah, I've actually been looking for this one for a very long time. And as you
Yeah.
say, the artwork is beautiful, and I think Wimbledon have always, made an effort with the designs on their tickets.
Yep. It's awesome. And then one of the ones I was talking about before, if it's not a Grand Slam championship, this was actually a semifinal match. This was the Federer's last career match and his last win against Nadal.
Okay.
So he epically went on to lose this final, but he beat Nadal on the way. This was his last win against Nadal and last win at Wimbledon. So I equate Federer and Wimbledon together. Obviously Nadal and the French Open go together, but to have the best of the best at the venue that is number one in tennis is pretty cool. So that's what I brought along. I've got a few others, but you get the idea. They're just hard to find.
Absolutely. Well, that's an incredible collection. As you were mentioning, different players, athletes being synonymous with different arenas. Did you have the Djokovic first win at Australian Open?
I do not have that ticket.
It's always difficult to find certain, events and eras, and I think that.
Nor do I have the first French Open with Nadal. Those, I think the French Open and the Australian Open are the two hardest to find. So if there's any Australians out there listening, or anyone in Paris that has some in their basement, hit Taylor and I up. We'd love to see them.
Absolutely. Just seeing them, as you say, is an experience in itself.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know it was Sinner's first Grand Slam most recently, and that was in Australian Open, which was a great result for him. And some of those tickets did come out, and they did look great, and they had passes and Ticketmaster copies of the tickets. Did you see them?
I saw some floating around online.
Yeah.
I'm trying to keep my collection a little bit tight in terms of who I collect, and otherwise you get out of control real fast. And I know if there was ever a moment or a champion that kind of came along that I wanted to pick up one or two of course I would. Probably leaning towards an American. An American hasn't won a Grand Slam in forever. So if Fritz broke through, or TFO or somebody like that broke through and won a major, I would definitely want to try to grab one of those. But I'm trying to keep my collection to the best of the best. I think you were talking about numbers earlier. Between Federer, Nadal, and Djokovic, they've won 66 Grand Slams, and I've got 27 covered. So I've got quite a way to go.
Yeah. So you're nearly halfway through that journey. Have you added them onto PSA's what's it called, where you can compare sets?
So I've added them personally, but you can't get a new registry added for some reason right now with PSA. They're way behind on getting a custom register added. I've tried. I would love to add these as individual, like Federer Grand Slams and Nadal Grand Slams and Djokovic. I would love to do that. But I think they're so far behind on that registry that it might not be possible right now.
Yeah, I know you've got, because I've sold you a Serena Williams ticket. What's that? Is the goal to kind of complete all of her wins or her Masters wins?
Yeah, that's what I'm aiming at, the Grand Slam wins for Agassi and Sampras, and then Nadal, Djokovic, Federer, and Serena. And so that's quite a few. Serena, I think I only have 5, maybe 6 of her 23. So again, they're just hard to find. Even a lot of them are U.S. Open, and they're still hard to find. because those date back to 1999. I think was her
Yeah.
first U.S. Open. And then the Sampras and Agassi ones are just becoming even more harder to find because they're in the early 90s. Sampras and Agassi started in 1990, 1991. So those tickets, even though there are still a lot of U.S. Open tickets, so you'd think they would surface. There's just not a lot of them out there.
Hmm.
I'm
I know.
trying to keep that core. That's enough. It's probably 100 total tickets that I'm looking for, and I probably have like 40 or 50 of them.
You're getting there. You're getting there. I've got some quick fire questions here,
Yeah,
and fire away. But when we're looking at tennis tickets, and I know we kind of answered this shortly, but are we going for a debut or a first Grand Slam?
I would say first Grand Slam.
A first Grand Slam or a first ATP?
First Grand Slam.
Uh, are we going for a? Okay, let's give the example of the 2008 final ticket. Would you rather a PSA 2 full or a PSA 4 stub?
I'm a stub guy. To
Okay.
me, the stub means that it was there. It was at
Hmm.
the event. I like that aspect of it. If a
Yep.
full is sitting around in a book somewhere that someone forgot at home, and this didn't go to the events, I'll take it or leave it. But I'm not a big grading fan. If it's a 1 or a 2 or a 6, doesn't bother me. I like some of the character that some of the creases or someone shoved
Yep.
it in their pocket, or it just shows me that they were there and that was part of the event.
Would you rather a player pass or the ticket itself from the stadium?
A player pass.
Yep.
I've only seen a few. I think I saw there was a few Nadals from the French Open floating around.
Yep.
Those are incredible. A player pass would be very cool.
Okay. What about just a pass in general versus a ticket?
I do have one. I think one of my Australian Opens is a pass, and I'm not against it. I would definitely rather have a ticket. But in the event that, again, these are so hard to find, I kind of took what I could get with the pass. So I'll say a ticket over a pass.
Okay, let me think of some others. Would you rather? I'm just trying to think. I actually did want to ask another question, and we can go back to some quick fire ones in a bit. But
Yes.
tickets and tennis go hand in hand. Is there any other memorabilia that you have within the tennis niche that is interesting? I know you've got the Federer shirt behind.
Yeah, I've got the Federer shirt. That's a game used or match used shirt from I think it's the Swiss indoors that he did back in the 2000s. I've got a few pictures, Agassi and Sampras autographed pictures. I've got a very cool Serena Williams Upper Deck Authenticated. It's called The Show. If you're
Mhm.
familiar with that series, it's massive. It's a huge autograph. They're very cool pictures. Used to collect tennis rackets and tennis balls
Yeah.
autographed. I still have some. My dad actually has those in his basement. I've got of tennis rackets. I've got the key players: Federer, Nadal, Djokovic, Agassi, Sampras, Serena, and a few others here and there. But otherwise, mostly uh, from the tennis perspective, it's mostly tickets.
Yeah, I think tickets just are so easy to collect, aren't they? They're relatively small. Rackets are huge, more difficult to display. So yeah, I think tickets
They
work
are.
well in that aspect.
They are.
I can imagine, the rackets looking good on one of the walls though, and yourself. It would look really good.
If I had room for it. So my dad has them in his basement right now. He's got a great memorabilia collection as well. So I had to transition some of this stuff to him. Because my space is a little bit limited down here.
Yeah,
But I would love to get them back one day and display them.
amazing, Todd. I mean, you've given everyone an introduction into tennis ticket collecting. It's a bit of a tongue twister, isn't it? Tennis
It
ticket
is.
collecting. But yeah, I think if anyone's got any other questions for Todd or me, just fire away. I've got my PSA returns coming back within 3-4 months, so that'll be interesting to see what
Yeah.
sort of.
So which ones are there for you?
So I've got the Alcaraz Wimbledon win, and was it 2023? Yeah, it
Yeah.
was.
Yeah.
I actually went. I was watching it in a pub in Wimbledon, as it's not too far from my house, and I was like, you know what, this is a great moment. I left the game early, headed up the hill towards Wimbledon, and basically all the people that were leaving, I was just asking for tickets, and I managed to grab, I think, 3 tickets. So
Awesome.
got 3 of them. One's a stub, two's full, so they'll be graded. I've got the Federer first Grand Slam. I've got I think that Nadal one that you, what is it? I'm not. I've got quite a few. Whether I graded them or not, I'm not sure. But
Yeah.
those definitely graded.
Okay. Have you
Yeah,
branched out to any other Grand Slams or just Wimbledon?
Wimbledon is all I can find.
Yeah.
Like truly, it is a matter of fact that I think Wimbledon in general are easiest to find, and then on top of the fact that I'm relatively close to it,
Yeah.
helps a little bit. But again, I'm doing Facebook posts like you did, and London families or Wimbledon families or whatever the random chat is, Wimbledon, support group and stuff like that, and nothing ever comes up. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's a
If you
challenge.
can't find them and you're in the neighborhood, I'm never going to find them.
Yeah, you can find them through me if I manage to pick up any spares.
That's right.
That's just how it goes. But yeah, Todd, thank you
Absolutely.
so much for your time. It's a pleasure to get to know your collection and yeah, give you the opportunity to spread your collection, I guess.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I love your show. Love what you're doing with the ticket community. And like I said, if there's anyone out there that wants to chat, I'm available. So thanks, Taylor. Appreciate your time.
Amazing. No worries. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye bye.